Hello and welcome all again, back in the kitchen, Chaos in the Kitchen, episode 2. It was going to be on banana bread, but I'm lacking a lot of the ingredients for now, and I wanted to do something today. So, I looked around, and I have enough to make French bread, though. Honey French bread. So, without further ado, I will do that. This little white box over here, bread machine. This saves me a lot of time. I can need the bread, but I got valuable TV watching and video game playing time. This does a better job than I've ever been able to do anyways. But I will bake it off in the oven over here. Everything's pre-measured again, so not to waste time. I have an optional step in here that I will bring up about if you want it to taste like sourdough. You first start with the flour. And this is to make a 1.5 pound loaf of bread, 24 ounce. I can show you how to make different sizes. I'll probably post the amount of ingredients for each size loaf, starting with one that's about a third this size, so half pound. So, but for this, it would take 3.5 cups of flour. I put that first into the machine, and you would use a mixing bowl with a hook mixer. If you got it, that would be best, or you could mix it by hand if you really don't like yourself. Any of that would work here. These ingredients do not just need a bread machine. I use wheat Montana natural white, which is a whole grain, really light colored whole grain. There's not a whole lot of brand to it. It's the best whole grain for a light colored bread, like French bread, that I have ever found. I also recommend King Arthur if you do not have wheat Montana in your area, because it's pretty much inland northwest is about all that I know to have access to their wonderful product placement. Even in my videos, I'm not even getting paid for it. Okay, honey, 1.5 tablespoons honey, followed by same amount, 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. Well, olive oil. French bread. Weird. That's how I do it. Maybe I shouldn't even call it French bread. I'll show you why I call it French bread when we get to the baking. So, we got a little bit of salt. You don't want to overdo this, or it's going to kill your yeast and you get no rise. You will have a wheat brick, that is better as a doorstop or a deterrent for thieves in your house or something like that. But that's why there is a teaspoon of salt, followed by 1.5 teaspoons of sugar. Yes. Sugar and honey ain't saving calories this time. I got some breads that are far worse than this, that you should see the numbers of the amount of butter and stuff some of these have. And the yeast is 2.5 teaspoons. And here, I will be over to how you would be putting in a normal. You would be 1.5 cups of water for your liquid. Now I have some sourdough starter in here, which pretty much you put a cup of flour, a cup of water, and you leave it out, and yeast grows in it. Usually I'd say put some bread yeast in it to get it started so nothing funky grows in there. If it starts turning weird colors and things, throw it out. Put about half as much. You would feed it tablespoons of flour. If it gets much thicker than it starts out, give it more water. You feed it off and on for a week. You only have to feed it about once a week if you keep it refrigerated. If you use it often, you're going to be replenishing it pretty quick anyways. If you're not planning on baking a lot of bread, I don't recommend doing it at all. Yogurt can be diluted into water. You'll get a very similar taste. You can also use a little bit of vinegar and get the sour taste as well. So here, we dump that in here. I'm using a 1.3 cup starter to 2/3 cup water roughly. I cut back a little bit, about 1/4 cup or so on the flour to get about the same volume here. It takes some practice to eyeball it. Spinning, you want to make sure it's all coming together to look like a dough. With practice, you'll know what the dough is supposed to look like. Add water or flour till you get the right consistency. This will be spinning on the dough setting until it's done, and then I will come back. The dough in the dough machine is done. We'll pull it out now and shape it. See that long strand there? The fact that it can stretch like that and stays together. Okay. Dust your hands in a little of this flour. You just want to kind of stretch it, pull it. It's almost like starts looking like a pizza ring dough. But once you get to that point, start turning it underneath into a circle. Kind of makes the cap of the mushroom. And then don't use your fingertips, just round the edges. Okay. And if it is kind of sticky, you want to dust a clean countertop with the flour. This seems to be perfect, so I don't think it's going to stick. But you just keep moving it in that same pattern, the sides of your hands, like that. Now that's how you get a round loaf. But today I'm going to be going for kind of a longer loaf. So you'll squish it more on the sides there as you're turning. Keep it kind of like that, and it'll start lengthening. You can roll it out a little. That'll help it lengthen. If it gets too thick on the ends, then just kind of scrunch them back in. Try it some more. If it's too thick on the sides, then you just roll it out some more. As you get it kind of on this side, how you knead it under, instead of on a circular loaf, you would make a ridge down the center, pull it like so, turn that ridge under, and then flatten it and start getting the shape you want. Start looking like a loaf. And from picking it up, it kind of ruins it all. But that's what you do. You just make the ridge, fold it together, pull it under. But that's pretty much how you shape it. Then you need something to put it on. And I'm going to use this metal pan. What you want to do, you can either put some cornmeal on this. I'm going to use some kitchen spray. We'll take a wonderfully shaped dough like so. Beautiful. Then you need to put it in place without a draft. I use the pantry that's over behind me. You put it up there and you let it sit for about half an hour to an hour until it's twice the size that you remember it going in as. About 15 minutes till that half hour is up. I usually preheat the oven, then we're going to pop it in there. Bread knife, and this is my loaf. It's quite a bit bigger than it was. I don't know if you recall how big it was, but you got the video. You can go back and see it quicker than I can. What I need is about 3 diagonal lines cut into it 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch thick. This will allow it to spread and rise. Otherwise, it fights against the skin that it's set on. So I will do so in roughly thirds as best as I can. The oven's preheated to 425 Fahrenheit. Not sure the Celsius on that, but that's what Google's for, right? Okay. There we go. Cuts. Excellent. Using a little, make sure that the cuts are widened just a little, that they're open, and they will allow for it to spread. Add in here at 425 for 5 minutes. That will set up the crust on the outside for the French bread style. Then we'll knock it down to 325 and leave it in there for another 20 to 30 minutes. At 20 minutes, we will test to see if it is done. The reducing of the heat and all the baking, I will not be recording to save on time, but I will show you the finished product when it's done and talk about how you can test doneness. See you then. Well, it's done, so we're going to pull it out. Be careful. The oven's been off a little while, but it's still kind of hot. The dawn is definitely hot, but that's beautiful homemade loaf of French bread. Looks beautiful to me. Turned out pretty good. I don't really need this anymore. So. Add it to a wire cooling rack or whatever you got. After half an hour, you are free to cut into it. Before you do that, the ways to test if it's done is turn it over. Sounds hollow. That's good. The other way to test is a thermometer. If it's 5 or 10 degrees above boiling, chances are most of the moisture has been cooked out of it, and you're also good to go. Well, that's it for now. So I hope you try to make your own.